Working with buyers when you start out is the best way. If you happen to be able to do a listing presentation with somebody, then shadowing them is a great way to start.
Welcome back. Today we're speaking with Tanya Eklund. She runs a phenomenal real estate team. She does 300 sales a year with her team, well over 250 million in sales volume. Her average sale price is 1.2 million, and she works the inner city of Calgary. So she works more of the upper end market. So it's going to be a really interesting conversation. It's really exciting because Tanya is not only a team leader, but she's actually going on appointments. She's actually doing 5 listing appointments today to give you some context. And she's been able to schedule in the this interview as well. So we're going to be talking about how she juggles it all, how she's able to deliver excellence for her clients, and how she's able to juggle that while being a phenomenal mom to, we'll say, middle-aged children, we'll say, as well. So Tanya, really, really excited for the conversation here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Mark. I'm honored to be here with you today.
So Tanya, both you and your husband, you guys are both entrepreneurs, super successful. I'm curious for you, were you born an entrepreneur? Maybe you could share your first entrepreneurial experience, and then what got you into real estate.
Well, both my husband and I are farm kids. He grew up on a feedlot. My grandpa was a grain and cattle farmer, and we lived kind of in his side yard. So I grew up with wheat fields and cows, and Chad really lived it. And we grew up 9 miles from each other in central rural Alberta, and met 19 years ago at a really sketchy house party at 2 in the morning. So that kind of a cool story. I think my childhood, my parents were both in the medical field, and so both employers, or sorry, both worked as employees. And my dad later on in life became an entrepreneur, and so I always saw him. Working very hard, and growing up in a farming community, you just had a very hard work ethic. You had chores and responsibilities. We were outside a lot. And so I don't know that I like where my entrepreneurial spirit came from. I would say that having a few jobs when I was really young, I had my first job when I was 14 at a movie theater, and then kind of went up from there. But I think it was in my early adulthood, young adulthood, 18, 19, 20, that I realized after working for people that I really wanted to work for myself. I don't know that I'm a control freak. I'm probably the opposite. I actually like to give up control in a lot of ways. So it wasn't that I wanted to be controlling, but I think I wanted to be in control of my destiny. And I wanted to be in control of the income that I made. I didn't feel comfortable someone telling me this is what you're going to earn every 2 weeks. And so when I started getting a paycheck, I think that's what kind of, there was like a light bulb went off that thought, how can I be in control of what I make?
Yeah, which led you to real estate.
Oh yeah, no, it was an accident because I was in university, and so I wasn't a really academic person. I always said, like, I didn't retain information super well. I actually found out later in life I had something called test anxiety, which I actually still have today when we do continuing education. And so I dropped out of university. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and real estate presented itself. And I was going to U of A in Edmonton, and drove down here, met with a gentleman that was really encouraging of the business. And I dropped out of university and moved here 3 weeks later. And that was 25 years ago.
25 years ago. So did you start on your own, or did you start within an existing team?
I started with a gal, and I was with her for about 9 months, and she was very gracious and was very good to me. But again, I think I had that sense of, oh, I have to do this when they want, and I'm being told what to do. And she was great. It wasn't her. I think it was just this, I wasn't in control again of kind of my schedule and the things that I wanted to do. And I mean, to be fair, Mark, like 25 years ago, our industry was so different than it was today. In fact, if I started now as an adult at my age in 25 years ago, and people would tell me what I'd need to do to survive, I probably would have told them to go take a hike. like door knocking and opening up the white pages and calling in a phone book and getting hung up on and door slammed in your face and calling expired listings. All of these things we can't even do in Alberta anymore. And so that was kind of my segue in my introduction into real estate.
So that's how you generated business, all those examples you just gave.
Open houses, calling expired listings, calling the phone book, and calling for sale by owners when they had their signs in their front lawns.
So it's so interesting. Our backgrounds are very similar. So I grew up on a farm as well. I remember picking rocks in the farm there. But starting, like, I actually went through the yellow pages. So this was about 18 years ago, and I would go through the yellow pages, and I would actually go through the list of I pick a street where so Roll a Page was the company I started with, and so if there was a listing that one of our Roll a Page agents had, I would go down the street on the yellow or the white pages, I guess it was. And I would actually go and I would call each one and I would basically say, hey, listen, we have a listing. Not me, but our company has a listing on the street, and we're calling all of the neighbors and seeing if you know anybody that is looking to move to the area. It would be nice to be able to pick your own neighbors, right? And then, and then if they said no, I don't know anyone, they get a chuckle. We'd say I would ask them if they're thinking about selling, but calling the phone, I remember if I had 100 conversations, I could book 2 appointments. It was like clockwork. But doing that, getting the reps in and having the conversations, like I wasn't particularly like this genius or anything. I just had more conversations, and what I found was the more conversations I had, the better I was able to convert. And I just got better by getting the reps in, and I did get some business. So it was actually twofold that I didn't even realize. I was skill building and I was generating business, but the skill building I didn't realize until after I was already like way down the road on that. Is that kind of how you we'll say your experience from doing all those calls?
Yeah, I think I was so young too. And I remember my broker telling me at the time, this is what you have to do. And I'm like, okay, if this is what you have to do to be successful. And it was, yeah, it was just, I hated it, Mark. I hated every minute of it. And my fear of failure was greater than my not wanting to be have anything to do with what I was doing. I just couldn't say I failed and now I'm going back to university. And so it just was not an option for me. And so I just grinned and bared it. And there were days where so many days I wanted to quit and I'm like this can't be it. Like this can't be what I have to do to be successful. But I just think there was just this kind of tenacity, this fear of failure in me that I didn't want to have to call my parents. And even though they're insanely supportive, to tell them that, oh, sorry, I'm moving back to Edmonton. So that just drove my want to just kind of get through it. But yes, like I think I was a Mike Ferry girl. So for every 100 calls, you'd get 10 contacts. And I think it was one sale.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Yeah, because it was 2 appointments, so it definitely wouldn't have been 2 sales. So, one would have, if you're getting 50% between appointment to agreement, and then maybe 75 to 80% from there, so it'd be less than a sale per 100. So you'd be like 200 to 300. Anyways, the point there is, I think we got our reps in, which I think is actually today. It's more important. I would say it's even just as important today as it is when we started that many years ago, like a couple of decades, or 25 years for you, 18 for me. I think now it's kind of like even with social media, although I think it's important, I think that it doesn't trade out the need to have actual conversations with people. Uh,
Yes.
I think that today it's like if you're not getting those reps and having conversations, it's like you're not building the skills necessary in order to get to that next level. Is that what you're seeing out there with new agents that are coming on? Like they're not getting the reps and they're not getting the conversations. Kind of what are you seeing?
Well, I'm seeing, I guess, a couple of things, and this isn't necessarily specific to my team, but I always say like there's two types of salesmen, and both is needed on a team. There's a hunter and there's a farmer, And the hunters go out and they kill what they eat. They will hunt, they will find leads, they will work tirelessly. They will sit 4 open houses a weekend. So they'll sit one house from 11 to 1, the second from 2 to 4, and they'll do the same thing again on Sunday. They will door knock. They will go up to builders that have their sign on a project and say, do you have representation? They will join one church, two gyms, three networking clubs. Like that is a hunter. And I was a hunter. But then there's the farmers, and the farmers are a very integral part of my team. I actually don't want a hunter. I'm just going to train a hunter, and in a year or two they're going to go out and hunt on their own, because they're going to be like, why would I give you something when I can make all of it over here? So hunter or farmers are near and dear to my heart. And the farmer, you give them the lead, and they water it, and they take care of it, and they nurture it, and they close it. And so there's the farmer and hunter mentality. And I think, you know, I'm seeing both types coming into the industry. I think both are maybe a bit naive on how hard that it really is. And I'm chatting with this new agent in my office right now. I've known him for years. He's a new realtor, and I took him on a listing presentation last week, and he's like, I don't know whether he was scared or whether he was like, that's amazing. I think he was a bit of both, because he said, I just want to sound that way, Tanya. And I said, Richard, this has taken 25 years for me to sound that way. He's like, but you're just so confident and you know what to say. And I said, yeah, but backtrack 25 years ago, I didn't. And I mean, I've done thousands of listing presentations. Like, and so when I said that to him, he's like, okay, you're right. And so I think that there's this, like, it's, you don't know what you don't know. And I think you hear of, oh, my friend's done, he's been in the business 5 years and he's been super successful, and he bought a Mercedes and he's doing this, but they don't know what it took to get that Mercedes. And so I think it is a little bit of a wake up call for a lot of new realtors. And I think it depends on what way they want to go about it. Do they want to join a team and have support and mentorship and give up a piece of the pie? Or do they want to go out and struggle on their own and then maybe reap the rewards years later? And there's both those types of people.
Tanya, what advice would you have for a new agent to, we'll say, get up to speed as fast as possible to execute on a listing appointment better? Do you have any advice for new agents that are starting out?
See if you can do a listing presentation with someone that you respect, well, not taking their intellectual property. Going along and just, saying, can I just be this person beside you? And I don't do that often. I very rarely do that. But if you have that opportunity, because otherwise, how do you learn? And I only learned for 9 months with this gal, but I learned something, and then you tweak it and you make it your own. I would also say that most realtors, when they start out, and someone told me this years ago, like, you don't become a listing agent, you evolve into a listing agent, because having a listing takes, I think, skill. It takes a marketing plan. It takes finances. A buyer's agent is great, especially if you're new, working with some first time home buyers. You're kind of learning together. It takes time, gas, and maybe someone to bounce some questions off to get the deal through. And the more buyers that we do, we grow with our buyers. I was 20 years old when I started. I've sold one client 9 homes in 25 years. Through divorces and that type of thing. But I've evolved with my clients. So I didn't just wake up and be a listing agent, but through the last 25 years, those buyers, those first time home buyers, have now bought 2 or 3 homes with me. And now, 25 years in, and I'm in my mid 40s, I've now helped them buy their dream home in the inner city for 4 million. But that has really evolved. And so I'd say working with buyers when you start out is the best way. If you happen to be able to do a listing presentation with somebody, then shadowing them is a great way to start.
Yeah, right on. So you're a master, well, call you a real estate agent overall because you're on the buying side, but on the listing side as well. Can you take us through kind of what your standard process is when somebody calls up to your office, to actually going through the appointment, to walking out, and then from there it's like, perhaps you could stop at the point of, say, doing the staging appointment or after, once you sign. But is there a process you follow, and can you kind of take us through what a typical listing appointment would look like for you?
Yeah. So most people contact me two ways: through our website, and they'll ask for an evaluation, and I get back to them very quickly. So usually within under an hour, as soon as I'll email them personally and just thank them for reaching out, and then ask if they can have a call. So we set up a call, an initial call, and I'll ask them questions like, I've pulled up your listing. I see you've lived here for 5 years. I ask them, what their plans are for where they're moving, timing, just general questions. Have they done any significant improvements since they've bought the property? Then I set up a in-person appointment. I say it takes between 45 minutes and an hour, unless it's a 10,000 square foot house and I allot for an hour and a half. And then we would walk through the property. I come prepared, but if it's a very unique home, it's a two-step process. So one of the ones I did this morning was a two-step process. It's in an area called Upper Mount Royal. Every house is very different. It's a 120-year-old community, and so I go through. We walked through the house, we sat down, we went through market stats, general market stats, stats specific for their community, marketing plan, fees, why us. But I asked them at the beginning, what is important to you? Because I have a list of 20 things I can go through with you. But if the only thing is, what is my price? Tanya, we don't care what you do to market. We see you everywhere. We know you market our home. Just tell us what our home is worth. Well, today it's a two-step process. So I left after 45 minutes and I said, I'm going to circle back with you within 2 days on a detailed evaluation of your property. I'm going to ask for your thoughts and comments, and then we're going to have a chat on timing and process moving forward. So that's our plan with that one. If it's an easier home to evaluate in an area where we have a lot of similar homes that have sold, then I can give them a value right at that point, because if it's in an inner city community, I might have sold the last 3 homes in their community, so I can really speak to them. So sometimes it's a 1-step, sometimes it's a 2-step. I leave them with my package, and then I'd follow up with them within 24 to 48 hours to see if they've made a decision. I never ask people if they're interviewing other agents. I just assume they are. And I don't care if I'm the first, if I'm the last. Well, sometimes I ask that as a joke. If they say, we've had 5 agents in, and I'll say, oh, am I the first, the third, or the fifth? But typically people do bring in 1 or 2 or 3 agents, and I'm okay with that. My story doesn't change, my price doesn't change, so I typically don't ask.
Tanya, so it's cool to see you thinking through the process and walking through. It is, to me, it's like a telltale sign on how you answer the question, on your expertise, because there's a process that you followed. And I don't know if this is how you did it, but you actually probably visualized actually walking through an actual appointment, right? Like you could see it in your
I
head,
did the one this morning.
in your mind. I just went on 2, and I'm going on 3 more after this meeting, right? But this is one of the things. There's 2 things I want to identify in what just happened there for the listeners. Number one is having a process to follow is what all the masters do. So, I remember when I was going on 5 listing appointments a day, it's like, it was the same. It was like the process of following up the same questions. Now, how you deliver it is very different based on what is important. Those questions that you asked ahead, what is important to you, and then being able to cater the presentation based on what they said. It's interesting. What I found, Tanya, was when they told me, I would like write down, so, have you sold a home in the past? What was your last experience? I'd write it down on a piece of paper as let's just wave a magic wand. Let's pretend, we sell your home, you're super happy. 6 months down the road, you look back and you're like, wow, that was like 5-star service. Like, if we just wave that magic wand, what did we do for you? Like, what were the main things that we were able to accomplish? And then they're like, oh, you do this, this, and this. I'd write it down. Like, what's important to you when you're selecting a realtor to help sell your home? Write it down. Throughout the presentation, what I would do is I would go back and I'd say, you know how you said, I point to my piece of paper, you know how you said that this was like really important to you? It's like, this is what we do to make sure that we deliver on this. And it was like, I'd go back and I'd point to it and they're like, holy geez, this guy, he's listening to me. And it's like music to their ears when you can state back what they said was important to you later in the presentation and how you're going to solve their problem.
Mm-hmm.
That
You're speaking to
that's
their pain
like
points.
100%. So you did the two things there that were like you had a process that you were able to go through, and that comes through a lot of reps, which you've obviously done. But I love what you said about asking the question, what's important to them, and then you were able to deliver based on what was important. I think that step is missed a lot with a lot of agents. They just go in and kind of rip off, their whatever their presentation. They don't sit and actually truly listen, um, and
I
then
used to
deliver.
do that, Mark, up until I hired a sales coach because I was sick of losing to these two women in my area that were much senior than me, way more experienced, but I was kind of just coming into these luxury areas. And I mean, one month I lost eight listings to these two ladies. And now they're like good friends. Like they're amazing people. I was just out for dinner with one like a month ago, and they are my competition, but they are my friends. And I was so sick of losing that I hired a sales coach like, I don't know, 8, 10 years ago. I don't even know. And I gave him my listing presentation, and he puts this Pez thing in front of me and he cuts me off halfway and he says, Tanya, all I hear is blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what do you mean? My listing presentation's amazing. He's like, Tanya, you sat down at the kitchen table where you were in my boardroom, and he said, you didn't ask me one thing about me or what was important to me. You just started a data dump, he called it. And he's like, it's like this Pez guy, it just flows out of his mouth. And so that was when I stopped doing that. And it's the first question I ask is I do the tour, I sit down, I thank them for having me. And I say, you know what? There's a lot of options out there. And I'm honored to have a seat at your table. And I want to start out by asking, what is important to you in this process when you list your home and potentially buy? And then I shut up
Listen.
and I listen.
It's so good. It's so good. I think the best salespeople in the world are the best listeners.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting because, like, growing up, I always thought that you're naturally a good salesperson. They're just good, good talkers. But what I found is the best salespeople, they ask really great questions, and then they pause and they listen, and they don't cut people off. When you're having a conversation with somebody and you ask the question, and then they answer, but then they ask you a question, you're answering it, and then they cut you off. It's like they're not even pausing. By actually taking a moment, just like how you did it with me, you take a moment and you listen, and there's like a pause of silence. That actually is a lot of times where like the gold comes in, because they'll feed in a little bit more information, and that's like the golden nugget. But if you don't give a little bit of a space after they answer, and like kind of nod, and that's why I like writing it down when they're speaking, because it like forces me to slow down and actually consider what it is they're saying and what they're not saying as well. And this is where I found for me, and having like a standardized approach to these is like, it allowed me to not be so thinking about my next words I was going to say or the next thing I was going to do. It was more like I already knew that intuitively, like by actually having a process. I was like listening to the things they were saying, and then I was watching their body language of the things that they're maybe not saying. Maybe there's a little uncomfort in one of the spouses when somebody else says something, right? And you can start to see that like this is more of when it's more of a mastery thing, right? You can see the things that they're saying and then things are not saying. And I think asking great questions is how you're going to draw that out. And people, they want to be, they want you to truly understand them. And a lot of times, my wife is like this with me. Sometimes I know I want to say, but I'm not getting the words out. And so she like asks good questions like, do you mean this? I'm like, yeah, that. If you can draw that out of people as a salespeople, not coming from a place of, and I like what you had said as well. Like, I'm honored to be here. It's like, because they see you as this big, you know, big city agent, right? It's easy to come in and ego. So I want to talk about that in a second. But the ability to go in and have good conversation and be able to pull out what is their real goals, what's the real problem they're facing there, what's the pain they're actually going through right now, and to identify it with words and show empathy for that for them, and then show them the path that you have on how you're going to solve their specific pain and problem. I think that is like masterful and powerful, and that's what you're doing in your appointment.
Oh, thanks, Mark.
So I want to talk a little bit about humility and humbleness. So you growing up on the farm, uh, I'm sure that would even resonate with some clients, right? As well, they probably, a lot of self starters with, especially you're doing more of the upper end market. A lot of these, like they're entrepreneurs. They started with nothing. They know what early struggle is all about. How big and important is humility and being humble in these appointments, yet being confident where they see you as an authority? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Hmm. Great question. I'd say that I sometimes get to weave my story in, not all the time. But I didn't like, because I didn't grow up in Calgary. In the communities that I live in, a lot of people that did grow up here, they know a lot of these families, like families that have long history. For Alberta, I know there's not a lot of history here uh, in comparison to other parts of the world. But when we look at the history, we're early 1900s oil and gas city. A lot of the money here is old money, especially in these communities that I trade in. And so I don't have the luxury of going in and saying, kind of name dropping a lot of last names. In fact, some of my clients do. And I actually feel like a little bit of a fish out of water sometimes in comparison to some of the other agents who have really, they grew up here, they know. So yeah, humility has to come into it because I don't necessarily have the connections all the time. I mean, I think I'm well connected for the 25 years I've been here through hard work and pounding pavement. But if I have an opportunity and I can't connect on my history of growing up here and knowing these five families, then I try to connect on a really personal level. So whether it's children, whether it's where they grew up, whether it's the activities that they like to do as a family. I say to people that the key for me, I believe in my success, is the ability to connect with people on whatever level you can find. And we can all find ways to connect with people, whether it's kids or where we live or how we grew up or a sport that we enjoy. And I do believe that once you find that connection with somebody, that develops an instant rapport with someone. Maybe not a trust, but it does develop an instant rapport. And usually, if I lose a listing, it's for two reasons. Sometimes I'm just price shopped and they're using someone else, which is fine. But it's usually price or connection. And connection, you can't fault somebody. It's like they connected with that person in some type of intimate way that made them feel like they wanted to spend more time with them, or that there was a trust built or a rapport built. And so I don't really dig deeper into that. I don't say, oh, can you explain the connection that you felt with that other realtor? Versus if it's a price, oftentimes I'll ask them, I'll congratulate them on making the decision and ask them if they'll share with me the price that they're at. And I'll just say, great, I'll watch for it when it comes to market. And you always show grace and humility when you lose. You've made a great choice. They're a really good agent. And even if you don't have respect for that agent and you don't think they're a great choice, you still have humility and grace and say, thank you so much for the opportunity. Again, I really appreciate it and wishing you all the best. And so, yeah, I definitely think there is humility, grace, kindness. It always wins at the end of the day.
Hmm. Yeah. Sometimes you get a call back after and it didn't work out with the first agent,
You do.
right?
Absolutely. They
Yeah.
they say, you know what, we made a decision based on price. It was the wrong decision. And so yeah, often, not oftentimes, but sometimes there's an opportunity to work with that client. And I always leave the door open.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, it doesn't cost you anything. The amount of times that people have come back after, you love on them, you ask the question, what was the main reason, but once they give it, it's like, at that point, you wish them all the best and you keep the door open. I think that's really smart, because they know 200 people, and if you rip into them in any negative way, they're telling 200 people about you. So that's like a really good tip for the agents. There's no
Totally.
upside.
Yeah. Don't even go
To,
there. Yeah. Don't even go
yeah.
there.
So Tanya, so you do a lot, like more of the upper end market. So you're serving clients with higher, maybe their standards are a little bit higher for what they maybe expect. You're servicing, multi-million dollar homes. Is there anything that you do from a service delivery standpoint that is like, it's more of a wow, like maybe above and beyond that when people list with you, or maybe they're working on the buying side, it's like, you guys do this like really well.
I think that's about the fun part. That's part of the fun part of my business is I say whether I'm selling your $300,000 condo or $4.5 million home that I just sold last week, the service and the process is the same. And now on our really high end, yes, there is a slight difference in the marketing for sure. You're getting gold foiled brochures instead of a matte soft touch. The just listed cards that we send out, well, we were sending out, we're not sure what's going on through Canada Post. They are slightly larger. You get more magazine coverage in print ad. So there is a slightly higher offering from a marketing print ad perspective, but the actual service that we provide is no different. And we do say we have a tailored marketing plan, and we do, because every house is different. And sometimes we put our homes on CTV News, sometimes we don't. I have a community tour every month where I get to feature one of my properties on CTV News, and so I get to pick which property and which community that we're highlighting. And so, but the actual service and the process is exactly the same. I believe that it shouldn't matter whether you're selling a $300,000 infill or a $5 million home. That sale to that person is an equal, should be an equal experience. Full stop. Because that person selling that $300,000 condo that's owned it for 10 years, that is going to then buy with probably Kobe on my team, and they're going to buy a $750,000 house. All their equity is tied up in that. So that nest egg for them is just as important as the person selling it to and buying it for.
Yeah. No, I love that. And we've seen that through the years as well, and how clients grow with you 100%. And I also like the fact that there's still like a brand difference in regards to like that gold foil, what they're actually receiving there as well. It's like a lot of this stuff, it doesn't, in some cases it costs, quite a bit more, but it's more about like catering and just taking extra steps, even like with communication and how you're communicating. It's like there's a certain level when people are at maybe that next stage in their entrepreneurial journey, and maybe they have a multi-million dollar home. There's certain things when it comes to communication and just overall service delivery that is an expectation. So, and I think that's where you naturally do all those things that these clients want. That's obviously why they gravitate to you, and why you've been so successful. But some of these other things, these other examples that you gave are great. And I love how you treat, all people are treated, are created equal. And at the end of the day, communication, if you have that high standard and you can give it across the board, I think that's really great. How about when it comes to habits and productivity? So 5 listing appointments a day, and you're doing this podcast with me. So what are some things that drive productivity on a daily basis that you find has been helpful for you to be able to just do more in a day?
Time management and delegation. And so delegation is the biggest blessing in my life. I delegate everything that if I end up doing that, it's going to inhibit me from my bread and butter, which is doing deals. So if it's picking up dry cleaning, groceries, scheduling service things for our home. And it hasn't always been this way, Mark. So when I was a one man show, I did everything, I wore every hat. And then as my business evolved, I kept adding people. And so now my family, we have a house manager, and she's a rock star. Tay, hi Tay, we love you. And she manages everything from our kids to making sure that our house is in good condition to just manages our lives, picks up, drops off, does all of the kind of the service things. We have a gal who cooks for us. So we have 3 meals a week that she comes in on a Monday. She pre cooks everything. So we have 3 really fresh meals on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights. So when I come home, I'm not spending an hour cooking. I get to spend it with my family. I have my full time support staff. And so I have a listing coordinator, a conveyancing coordinator, a full time photographer and videographer, an EA to my team and myself that is business. And then a Nikki who handles all of our digital marketing and social media. We're very systematic. We have systems for everything. We use Follow Up Boss for our CRM. We use Trello for internally for the girls in the office. We have a Google Calendar for certain things. So I have now designed my life after 25 years. So it really runs, I would say, like a well oiled machine. It doesn't mean we have things that go wrong. It doesn't mean that we lose somebody. It doesn't mean that we don't make mistakes. It doesn't mean that we don't have frustrations. I would say, though, they are contained and they're not on a daily basis.
Mm, it's so smart. For me, it was like I figured out what I was worth per hour, and then I realized, oh, cutting my own grass. I'm like, geez, I'm paying myself pretty low dollar for doing that. It's like shoveling the driveway. It's like, and when I started hiring all that stuff out, I'm like, man, my life just improved so much. I even, having somebody come in and do the dishes or cook, I think it's to see it as an investment versus an expense, I think is really good. Now, the key is you don't want to go do all that and then go flop in front of the TV, 10 hours of the day. Yeah, like you want to be able to trade those hours for higher productive activities, which obviously you guys are doing. But it's genius to me because then you can do more of those higher productive hours, and you can actually be way more profitable and doing the things that you love to do.
I mean, I was a one man show for Oh, I mean, I tried to be a 2 man show, but really I was a 1 man show for like 7 years. And then I hired an admin, and then my admin got licensed, and then we hired another admin, and then another agent, and then another admin. But that's over a course of like 6 years. I didn't have, I didn't have children for a good portion of when I started my career. I wasn't married. And then when I was, my husband was a workhorse. He went back and did his executive MBA. So it was so funny. People are like, are you guys okay? Like, you don't get to see each other often. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. I can work till midnight. Everything's good. And then you have kids, and then you delegate certain things. And then, like, it is an evolution. You don't wake up one day with 5 assistants and, like it just, and you add things as you can afford it or barely afford it to then give you more time to focus on the things that, make you money. So I want to be very clear for our listeners. It is an evolution, and I feel very blessed that I am where I am today. But it has not come, Mark, with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah, no, totally. That's well said. Um, I want to talk a little bit about like faith. So for me, through the years, this has been something that. So I'm a Christian, and actually through many of the hard times, especially like at the beginning, like just to me, like there's a lot of business principles and success principles in the Bible. that I was able to take and implement. And, even from a humility standpoint, realizing that whatever success that I've accomplished is really nothing in the big scheme of things. So, the humility side, and there's just so many key nuggets that I found for me personally has been a major part of my own personal success. How has faith played into your success and your kind of overall family, and maybe any sort of insight that you can give on that end?
So I have faith, fitness, family, friends, and finances. And I say without my faith, nothing is possible. My life would not be what it is without my faith in God. Um, Fitness is number two, and that is I believe in self care. I'm a huge proponent of self care, and without this vessel being mentally, emotionally, and physically fit, I can't show up for the people in my life, like my kids, my husband, my clients, like I need to be. Then it's my family and my friends and my finances. And it's not something that I wake up every day and say I'm going to do these 5 things in this category each day, but it is just a governance in how I live my life. And so my faith is very important to me. I think some people maybe meditate where I pray. Some people maybe, they might go to a mosque on every Sunday. I go to my church. My church is also my running. I'm a big runner. And so I think, having faith and believing in a higher power, something that is greater than yourself, I've just believed it my whole life. And so to not have that is kind of like, I can't imagine my life without that. So it's just, yeah, it's a pillar of my life.
Yeah, I love that, and that totally makes sense to me. 100%. It's like when you know why you're here on the on Earth, right? I think that like gives you to me much more, we'll say, clarity on making day to day decisions. And I also like as well your perspective on fitness. It's not talked a lot about being that second position, but it makes a lot of sense to me. When you get on the airplane, the first thing they say is like, if we're going down, like put the mask on yourself first, right? Versus, putting it on your person beside you. Because if you're going to get knocked out, you're not going to be able to help the person beside. So thanks for sharing that. That's really insightful. And obviously it's a big part of your overall success, having that mindset. So okay, cool. So I know you have 3 more listing appointments, so we're going to do our rapid fire. I got 3 last questions here for you, and they're going to wrap up. But this has been a really great conversation, Tanya. There's been lots of gold nuggets that you've been able to drop here. But my first question for you in this rapid fire part of the conversation is: I'm a big reader. I love reading books. I'm curious for you, which book has had the biggest impact in your career?
Um, I would say my career. Oh gosh. Um,
It could be any book as well, and any impact of any part of your life that when you look back on and say, you know what, there was change in my life, or there was some sort of improvement that you were able to take from it.
okay, I have a couple books. The one is Dan Lyon's The Power of Keeping Your Mouth Shut. So that is a really great book. Um, and it's basically exactly what we discussed about, there's most times in life that silence is a better option than talking, which I think a lot of us do. Um, One of my favorite books that is not real estate related is Rick Warren, The Purpose Driven Life. I think that that's just an overall great book for people getting through life. Another one that I love is Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. So those would probably be the three that I've read in the last, say, 12 months. Two of them I've reread again that I really love.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Uh, the people that know you best, Tanya, if they were to describe you in 3 words, what 3 words would they use to best describe you?
Tenacious, stubborn, and giving.
Okay, cool. All right, and then final advice for the agents that are out there. Final advice that would help them perhaps take their business to the next level.
Final advice would be to get a really good coach, not a mentor. I typically say mentors is someone that you just admire and look up to, where a coach will have a very strategic plan and help guide you. I've had many coaches throughout the years. I love my coach now. He's also I call him my brother from another mother because he's brown. So we have fun with that. But he really is like a brother, but he is such a good coach. And he just like can get me out of some really like mindset. He can help me with my mindset. He can help me with strategy. He's really helped my team grow, like not grow necessarily in the sense of volume, but grow in culture and togetherness. So I would say best piece of advice would be to get a good business coach, invest in yourself and your business.
Yeah, that's great advice. And final question for the listeners that maybe want to send you a referral. Maybe they have, a buyer seller that is in your area, the Calgary area, and they want to refer it to you. What's the best way they could reach out and connect?
Yeah, I always answer my phone. I mean, unless I'm in a listing appointment. But so my cell, 403-863-7434. They can email me at tanya@tanyaeklundgroup.ca. They can fill out a form on my website. They can contact me through Instagram, which is just at Tanya Eklund. I They could call the number on my bus bench if they drive by it.
Very cool. Well, Tanya, this is a phenomenal conversation. Really appreciate you coming on the call. And I know it's just been an extremely busy day, but the volume that you're doing on your own with your team as well is substantial and noteworthy, and something you should be proud of. So again, appreciate you coming on the show.
And thank you so much for the opportunity. It's lovely to finally meet you, and thank you for your podcast and the way that you're giving back to the community. I think that that's a really great. It takes a lot of time, so thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for listening to the show. If you liked it, you can go ahead and subscribe to the channel or maybe share with another real estate agent that you think could get value from it.